what you really want to hear is from Cheryl. Just a quick background for those that aren't as familiar with our family. So I'm Scott McFadden, my wife Cheryl, when our boys were small up there in September of 2014. That's when we moved to Tanzania, to a small town called Geita. But really the journey of Africa and our family even goes back to the year 2001 when Cheryl first went to Uganda on a summer internship. And it goes back all that long of the time, and she fell in love with East Africa and the community and the people there and the needs that were there. It took a little bit longer, 12 more years, in fact, for God to work on me to say, yeah, you need to go move to Africa. It was not in my plan, but it was in his. It just took a little bit of timeline. Since that time, so in 2013, we made the decision, and through that process, Fernandina Beach came alongside us and has been one of our family's biggest supporters, both from a financial perspective and just from a spiritual perspective. This body's been really special to us. We've had members of this church come all the way over and spend some time with us in Tanzania, and you guys have always just been really close to us and a part of us. So back to September 2014, we moved over to Tanzania, and we were there working on the mission of Neema House. And Cheryl will talk more about the details, but it's a place for kids that need help. They need some assistance, families that need help. And we were there running it day in, day out, was the mission that we were a part of there. There for 6 years, all the way through the summer of 2020, and unfortunately with permit issues and different things, we had to leave. An option that was given to us was for me to start working with another group of missionaries in Rwanda. If you're not familiar with East African geography, it's right next door to Tanzania. So it was a real good thing for me to be able to go and work full-time with helping the finance side for a school. They're run by some missionaries, and Cheryl was able to continue with the mission at Neema House. It was an easy way to drive to get there. He already turned you on, I guess. And so the mission continued, even though we had left Tanzania, our residency there. Cheryl still had a permit and was able to go back and forth and still work on the mission at Neema House. And we spent 2.5 years in Rwanda there, and just continued with that dynamic of me working there and Cheryl going back and forth to Neema House. In 2023, an opportunity came up for me to get a job at Harding University, our alma mater, and we took that opportunity to move back to the States. And even though we are all living here now, and the boys are much bigger, when we moved, none of them outgrew Cheryl. Now they're inching up. Caleb's outgrown me, and a couple of them are getting close. We had an opportunity to come back to the States, and so I've been working there, and the boys are doing very well. They're back here. You can talk to them and get their own opinion about how life in America is going. It's good. It's different for sure, and it's only been a couple of years, but we think that everything's going pretty well in the right direction. And they have there's a missionary kid camp that happens at Oklahoma Christian in the summers, and Caleb went to it a couple of summers while we were still living overseas. He was able to come back to the States and attend, and our other 3 boys have gone the past 2 summers. They just did it a couple weeks ago, and that's a great place to help with transition and for other kids who have grown up overseas in a different context, and they all just kind of have this unique experience that is hard to translate or hard to communicate to people, and that's been real good and helpful for them. They've been attending a small school in Searcy for the past year, and I'll be going back again. That's been a great place. There's some other kids who have grown up overseas as well in that small school, and Searcy as a community has a lot of that environment, so it's been going really well while we're there, as Cheryl continues her work with Neema House and going back and forth, and she's going to talk more about that.
Okay, a lot of you may have heard me present or talk about our work before. I'm going to show a quick video some of you may have seen. because I'm also aware that maybe not all of you know everything that we do, so I'm going to do an overview also and then talk about how my work is continuing. So. Neema House is a home for vulnerable children. It's a temporary care facility for children ages 0 to 5. We take in children who have been orphaned and that there's no family around, who have been abandoned. We care for children here on site. They have a preschool, and we have local staff who've been trained to provide for their day-to-day needs, interacting with them, playing with them, helping them with their ongoing development.
Neema House serves just as a temporary home, while other measures, other steps have been taken to make sure a child gets a home, whether a biological family or through adoption.
Reunification can look like many different things. We're not just insistent on putting a child with a relative, no matter what the cost. It is important to us that the relative is safe and able to provide for the child.
Kipindi anajifungua baadaye akafariki. Alijifungulia hospitalini mnamo muda wa saa 10 za usiku. Yaani Neema House ilimsaidia sana kwa sababu alikuwa bado mdogo mpaka na mtoto wako bado amekuwa. Yaani mmenisaidia sana kwa sababu ndio maana nasema kwamba bado tunashiriki kwanza biashara, kuuza nyanya, dagaa. Na kwa ninauza samaki hizo mbichi za kukaanga. Ndio nikawa tayari kajizo kwamba kwa namtaja sasa hivi hata nikikaa naye.
If we cannot find family, then we go through the processes with our local social welfare office to make the child available for adoption.
Kwa muda mrefu na mpaka hapa nilipokuja kumpata Loveness akiwa kwenye kituo cha Neema House, alikuwepo mama Katalina na mama Kelebu ambao walishirikiana vizuri kabisa kumlea mtoto huyu na kuwapatia haki zao za msingi ili wapate thawabu kwa Mungu, lakini pia kuendeleza jamii ya Watanzania kuwa kitu kimoja. Yaani mimi ninapenda mtoto wangu aendelee vizuri. Nimejaribu kuzungumza naye, atakuwa daktari.
Maisha Matters is our outreach program that works with children in the community who have suffered from malnutrition. We wanted to find a way to support the kids at home with family instead of bringing them into an out-of-home placement. We started being able to decrease the number of children going into out-of-home care, but increase the number of children that we were actually being able to serve.
Oliva kipindi ananyonya alikuwa na afya nzuri. Nilimnyonyesha mpaka miaka 2. Lakini kulingana na tatizo lake lilikuwa ndio linaendelea vile vile. Nikaona ngoja miaka 2 ametosha kunyonya, na kweli nikawa nimemwachisha. Kipindi nilipofika Neema House tulipata mafunzo. Ndio nilipojulia kuwa mtoto anatakiwa, lakini mpaka sasa Mungu amemsaidia. Neema House walinisaidia na mpaka leo mwanangu yu hai.
Nilianza kunyonyesha maziwa ya ng'ombe akakataa, akaanza kuharisha. Ndio kula akaugua, ndio tukaenda wapi. Mimi nashukuru sana. Neema House imenisaidia sana kwa kukosa maziwa. Nilikuwa hodini hospitali Geita, nikakoswa nauli hivi nifanyeje sasa, nifanyeje biashara nipate kunani kuanza biashara. Nikajifikiria niuze mbuzi, nifanyeje nianze biashara hii ndogo ndogo.
The goal of Neema House is to find a home for every child. We don't want to see children growing up in out-of-home placements. We want to be here to provide safety and security whenever needed. We want to always find a family, whether it's through reunification or adoption, and we want to see that child raised in a loving home. Okay, so that's a quick overview of Neema House, but basically we're a children's home in Geita, Tanzania, and this is, even though my family has come back to America now, this is my full-time ministry still. I spend about 1/3 of my time in Tanzania and 2/3 of my time in Arkansas, but when I'm in Arkansas, I'm still working full-time doing a lot of the administrative stuff, fundraising, things like that. I have 43 staff members. When I first got there, we had about 7. So obviously we've grown quite a bit. All my staff are Tanzanian. Most of them speak only Swahili. I have 3, I think, that speak English. And we have grown over time from 1 home to, I now have 3 residential homes. We have an infant home, a toddler home, and a family home. So our family home is for kids that we've not been able to find families for. We work really hard on reunification and adoption if we can't find the families. But we have up to now, so this has been since 2014 when we took over, we have 4 kids in our residential home, so who are between ages currently 6 and 11. That we have not been able to get home to families. So I think that's pretty good statistics. So we will be working with them until they turn 18 and working on long-term plans for them. But our goal is to find families for them. But in addition to our children's home, we also have outreach programs that I'll talk about, which is our Maisha Matters, which is our big program that works with malnutrition, and it's a prevention program to prevent kids from being placed in out-of-home care. And then we do cleft lip and palate repair as well. We don't do it ourselves, but we help get them connected to the surgery. So at our children's home, we really try to prevent kids from just being placed in a children's home just because it's easier for the family. We work really hard on only taking in the children that don't have any other options. So these are children that are found abandoned, so you have no idea where they came from. It's usually an infant that's been abandoned and there's no relatives around, no knowledge of where they came from. Instances of abuse where the guardian has been arrested for extreme abuse, and obviously there need to be some investigations about what's going on, who can safely care for the child. Safety concerns. So the safety concerns can involve, you'll see pictures, we currently have 3 albino children. In Tanzania in the past, there were a lot of safety issues around albino children because witch doctors say that their bones have magic powers. And so witch doctors will pay a lot of money for them, and people will kidnap them and murder them and sell their bones to witch doctors. So this becomes worse around election times. It was a big problem back in 2014 and 2015 when we first moved there. Then the president that was elected in 2015 really cracked down on it, and by about 2017, all the albino kids we had were able to go home, everything calmed down. But this last year, that president died, there's a new president, and they say things are getting worse again. We have had 3 albino kids placed with us because there will be elections in October, and there are concerns about safety issues again. So they have come, and then other safety issues that would have a child come to us is if there's a mother that's mentally ill that is found with a child but no other known relatives around. And so they will place the child with us. And then if a mother dies in the hospital and she's there with a baby and there's no relatives around. So we won't take children if they're known fathers or aunts or uncles or grandparents. In those instances, we will say no, we'll provide supports to them. It's a large part of why Maisha Matters started. So it's really only for kids that don't have any other options. Our goal is to get them placed with a family. We don't like to see kids grow up in children's home. We don't think that's the best option for them. And so I've trained my social workers, because government social workers don't do anything, to do those investigations. As soon as a child is placed with us, they go out and they start doing investigations. Where did this child come from? So if the child was abandoned or with a mentally ill mother, they start talking to all the people around in that area, the local leaders. Does anybody know where they came from? And a lot of times we can eventually track down relatives. Sometimes this happens quickly, sometimes it takes a long time. But just because Tanzania is such a relationally based society and community, people know everything about everyone. And so you can eventually make these contacts and find out where they came from. And then we'll work on getting a child home with a relative. We'll do investigations before they go home. We'll visit the home. We'll talk to neighbors. We'll talk to local leaders, make sure it's a good environment. Then after they go home, we visit for at least a year, every month, to make sure they're doing well, to find out if there's any problems, any concerns. And then after a year, if there have not been any concerns, we stop the regular visits, but if we're ever in the area, we'll drop by and see them. If we can't find a home for them, then we work on getting them adopted. And so adoption can only happen domestically in Tanzania. There's not international adoptions unless you've lived in the country for at least 3 years. So we've had 3 kids, I think, that have been adopted by what we call expat families, so families from other countries. 2 American families, 1 British family. Other than that, all of our adoptions have been with Tanzanian families. Usually they're more educated families from bigger cities that are more aware of the idea of adoption, but they have to go through the legal process of doing home studies and getting approved by the Social Welfare Commissioner, and then they're sent to us to adopt. So I want to tell you a few stories just to help you understand the work we do. So this is Doto. So she was placed with us because she was living with her grandparents, and it was a case of severe abuse and neglect. She and her twin brother were a year and a half old, and they were left home alone basically all day, every day, and then there was abuse involved also. She became very malnourished. So this is actually, the swollen eye and everything is because of malnutrition, not because she was beaten. But the situation was really bad. And she came and she lived with us for a little over, close to a year and a half. But for the first year, this girl did not smile once. She wouldn't smile, she wouldn't engage, she wouldn't walk. So even though she was getting to be older, we still had her in the infant home because she didn't walk. And you know, you have children at different levels of resiliency. Some of them, they've been through horrible circumstances and they come in smiling and playful, and then you have kids like this, you can tell that they've just gone through a lot of trauma. But our staff just loved on her and cared for her. Eventually, we found her mother. So she'd been living with her paternal grandparents, and her mother just thought that they were being well cared for. She lived in a completely different area of Tanzania. So when we made contact with her and told her the story, she ended up moving back to Geita region to find a home, to get a job so that she could take care of her children. And then we reunified them with her. And so this was her 2 years later, and her and her twin brother, when we went and we were doing a home visit. And she about maybe a month before she left, she had finally started smiling and playing. So I was almost nervous for her to go home with the mother because I was like, we just had this huge breakthrough. But she still, every time we visited her, she was just thriving at home. And then again, we dropped in and saw her after another year, even though we had kind of pulled out at that point, and she's just growing into this beautiful girl. So that's our goal, is to get them back home where they're well cared for, and get them with families. And again, if not that, then through adoption. We don't do the follow-ups on the adoptions because we don't legally have the right to do that. And most of those families they leave the region, but a lot of them will send us regular photos and updates on kids anyway. So to date, we've had 222 kids that have been placed at Neema House. 126 of them we have gotten back home successfully with their relatives. 61 of them have been placed in adoptive homes. So that's about 86% of our kids that have left and gone successfully to families. All the ones that are still with us, obviously we're still working on making plans for them. These are just different photos of, I didn't know how this was going to work, of kids at Neema House. Those are our 4 kids right there in our family home that are older children. One of them, we don't know anything about, the family never have, but he has HIV. He was never adopted. And then the other 3 come from severely abusive families. And we still are trying, but we've never been able to find relatives that can care well for them because the entire families are known alcoholics and very abusive. And so unless we can find protective family, they will remain with us, and we'll work with them on they go to school in town, they go to a private school in town. and then they live on site on all their school breaks because at this age they have to go to boarding school in Tanzania. So these are just the different kids. So kids can come from birth and then we take them up to age 5. After age 5, there is a children's home that take older kids in town, a Catholic home, so we won't take them when they're older, but we keep the kids that grow up past that age because we don't want to just pass them on to a different home. So then we started Maisha Matters, and that is our outreach program that does malnutrition work or prevention work. And so the idea initially was to prevent kids from being placed in children's homes when the mother died or when there were problems. Families were coming to us or social welfare all the time, and they were asking us to take all of these babies that had relatives. So we started as, well, let us support them at home, because usually it was a need for milk. The mother had died in childbirth or was mentally ill or sick or something. So we started providing milk to those families to feed the babies. Then it expanded into working with children that are severely malnourished as well, because there's no resources in our area that work with malnutrition. And the hospital said up to 10 kids a week were dying from severe malnutrition. So we expanded it. It works with kids under age 10 who are at risk of or suffering from severe malnutrition. And we see, some just brand new infants that are very healthy and the mother just died and they're referred straight to us. But then we also see really severe cases where they're 2 months old and they weigh only 2 pounds. And because the family hasn't been able to feed them, and so they come to us in extreme need. Or they're severely malnourished, they're 4 years old and weigh 8 pounds. We work with a lot of severe things. The hospitals don't do a whole lot. If you saw them, you would understand they don't do anything there. And unlike here, where they won't even discharge a child from the hospital until they're 5.5 or 6 pounds, regularly they are sent home, because there's a lot of premature babies, regularly sent home at 2.5 pounds to these village homes with no running water and no whatever, and just expected to survive. So those are the types of families that we're supporting through this program. So this program, it offers milk and nutritional support, caregiver education, crisis intervention, home visits and monitoring, medical support, and business startups. So what happens is they come to us every single week. We weigh the child, we provide parent education. We keep track of records. If they're losing weight, then we're asking questions. We're doing medical screenings and assessments to figure out, is there a health cause? Does the child have pneumonia or TB, HIV, things like that, that would be preventing them from being able to gain weight. So as you can see, it takes a lot of milk every week. I think we spend about over $60,000 a year on milk just trying to support these families. But these are the families that come every week. We do trainings with them. The trainings are on issues of education and, medical things, on nutrition, on the signs of malnutrition, on the importance of clean water, and how different health conditions that can contribute to it. So we're trying to increase the knowledge, because a lot of times families just don't know. They don't know how to feed these children. They don't know how to feed even the older kids, and that's why they become malnourished. It's a poor diet. It's a lack of micronutrients. So helping them just understand how to do that. We measure the upper arm circumference. That's a quick measurement for the level of malnutrition, so that we can help gauge where they're at, how healthy they are, in addition to measuring weight and other things. We offer some crisis support. So if a family is in really extreme need, like they have no food or resources in the home, or we will offer food assistance, or sometimes we'll help get them into a home for 2 or 3 months. We try not to do too much because we don't want them to become dependent on us. So this is left up completely to my Tanzanian staff when they really feel like, this family has nothing. They have nobody else, no other options. And we do medical support. So medical support sometimes is in connection with the government nurses who will come and administer vitamins and worm medicine to the group when they come. Sometimes it's us taking them to the hospital or clinics to help them get screenings or to be admitted to the hospital if it's an extreme situation, to get tested for TB, and we've helped with some surgeries in a few cases. Again, those are all extreme situations where the family just can't do it themselves. Families will graduate. It depends on why they come. They stay within our program usually 6 months to a year, just depending on their need. If they came as a brand new infant, or if they came as this severely malnourished toddler, they might not need to be with us as long. So when the child is healthy, over a year and thriving, and the family's had all of the different trainings and have shown that they're doing well, then we graduate them. In some cases, if they have no ability to provide for themselves, we do business startups. So that is, we try to either get them help with skills training, which is usually the most successful, like so learning how to become a seamstress or make soap, things like that. And then sometimes with market stalls, we will help them get a business started up, and they have to pay back 50% of whatever we put into the business, because that helps keep them accountable for running the business well, for not just depending on us and thinking, oh, well, if we use it all up, then they'll just do something else. So we do that for families if they don't have any other source of income, because we don't want to discharge them and then the child become malnourished again because they can't afford to feed them. So this is an example of a child that came, it's their first day. This child, that's 1.52 kilograms, about 3 pounds. And that child, the mother had died, and the family had been trying to feed with cow's milk, but they had been vomiting a lot and they had been losing weight, and so they came for support. So we're supporting the grandmother. We do home visits to every family. Some of these families come from 3-4 hours away, but we go out to all their homes so that we can see the environment, we can talk to neighbors, we can understand truly what are the challenges and abilities of this family. So some of them have resources, and how can they use those resources to better benefit the family, or are they too isolated and we need to help get them relocated somewhere else, or we evaluate and assess the whole situation. Some families will visit one time, some families we might visit multiple times, just based on the need. And again, severe malnutrition. And tiny babies. This is Emmanuel, and he came to us. His grandmother's raising him. The mother died in childbirth, and he went home he'd been home for 2 or 3 weeks at this point, so he was just over 2 pounds when he went home, and she started caring for him in the village. And he's thriving and doing well now. Kua, Doto, and Tatu. So this mother gave birth to triplets. There's so many multiple births in Tanzania, just naturally. Twins are extremely common, but we've even seen many sets of triplets and even quadruplets that just appear naturally. And what's fascinating to me is they never have a clue that they're going in to give birth to multiples. I asked a mother of quadruplets one time if she had any idea she was going to have more than one, and she didn't. So these families really struggle to feed these babies. So in these instances, we also offer milk support. We'll do breastfeeding support, but also supplementation with milk. So this woman came and she was like, I have no idea how to feed all 3 of these babies. So we worked with her, and we just monitor their weight, and then we'll start providing milk when we start seeing, because usually for the first month or so, they're okay. And then we start adding. And in the end, we only gave her enough milk really to support 1 child, and she was doing the rest of the feeding. And so this was them close to a year old, all thriving. And in the beginning, she was just like, there's no way these kids are going to live. So what we're doing is we're instilling hope back into these families, and by providing the minimum level of care, but also just empowering them and encouraging them. This is a kid that I'm on my last trip to Tanzania, Hoji, and his mother had died when he was 9 months old, and then he would become severely malnourished. And his dad didn't know how to feed him or how to care for him. And this was after a week. The first week, my staff they didn't think he was going to survive. They were coming to me every day. They're like, we need to go visit again. They went and visited the home 3 or 4 times in that first week just to talk to the dad about how he needed to be feeding the child and what he needed to be doing. So this was after a week. So he had already was doing better at this point. But then they sent me this photo after I came back. So this is after just 3 weeks. He had gained that much weight, and that was just from having good nutrition and understanding what to do, because the dad just, again, didn't know how to feed his child or what to give him to help keep him healthy. And so we see drastic transformations really fast. So, you know, the first part is really hard to see, but it's such a rewarding project as well. And it's rewarding to see these families get their hope restored, because a lot of times by the time they come to us, they've lost hope, and because they know what their medical system is like, and they're like, my child's not going to survive. So through Maisha Matters, we've now worked with over 1,500 kids, and these kids are all kids in the community. Again, they come mostly from our region, but they can come outside also. We're seeing a lot less kids that are being placed in children's homes. So that is good for us, because again, we want to keep families together. We're seeing better sanitation in terms of cleanliness, understanding, you know, people there culturally wash their hands before they eat, but they don't use soap. They use soap after they eat. So it's teaching little things like that, like, no, you need to wash your hands with soap before you eat because of all these things. Teaching them to build latrines to use, because a lot of families in villages, in remote villages especially, they don't have any kind of latrine. So just teaching them to do that, teaching them about good water, clean water, how to sanitize water even if they're just getting it from like muddy holes, like how to boil it so that it's safe for them to use. So, and then we're increasing the caregiver knowledge about nutrition and health, which obviously doesn't just impact that one child, it impacts the whole family, all the other kids that live in the home. And we regularly will have families come back 3, 4, 5 years later with their child, because they just want us to see that they're still doing well. Or if we are in a village, they might come up to us, oh, you helped our child 4 years ago, and now she's doing so well, and she's in school, and so that's just always exciting and encouraging to hear. And then we're seeing higher family incomes by working with them through business support. Even if we don't do business startups, we have a business officer that works with them on giving them business strategies, discussing how they can improve businesses that they have or projects that they have and better use of their resources. And then my social workers and my assistant director are all men, so they really push on the father involvement. And traditionally, fathers are not involved in the care of children at all, but we are seeing, especially because a father might come to the first visit because his wife just died, but then they see these men there working and talking, and so they will sometimes be encouraged to continue coming for the caregiver trainings instead of passing it off to their sister or somebody else. So we're seeing a higher involvement of men also. So with regard to the work that I'm still doing, so that's all kind of wrapped up with prayer requests. So like I said, I still travel. This is my full-time ministry, so I'm gone a third of the time, which obviously I'm away from my family all that time, and so that's hard on all of us to do that, because even when I come back, there's lots of trips and responsibilities and things. One of my key responsibilities as I oversee all this staff is just to lead them towards sustainability long term, to raise up and train leaders. And so wisdom for me on how to lead the staff and how to lead them well, and how to train the people in authority to work together well for the good of the organization. We have a lot of government corruption, a lot of medical challenges and those that are biggest issues just with our day-to-day operations that we're just dealing with all the time, that can cause problems for us. One of the things that I'm working on is we're working on building a sustainability project in Tanzania, and so the idea of that is to generate some money specifically for the operations of Neema House, so to generate money in Tanzania for that. So we're looking to start up a chicken, egg, and manure project where we raise chickens on property that we already have, and then we sell the eggs and we sell the manure to farmers, and then eventually as we rotate them out, we'd sell the chickens also. But So all the funding from that would go directly into the Neema House budget to fund operations. It wouldn't fully support it, but it would obviously help tremendously. So what we're, last time I was there, I was doing a lot of research, meeting with board members and things like that to create a plan and a project proposal. So now we're working on getting funding secured for that so that hopefully next year we can get that project up and running, which will just help relieve, again, a lot of the funding needs long-term to keep things running smoothly. At this time, we have 4 special needs children, and the likelihood that they'll go home is really slim. But I've found that there's a home for special needs children that's run by a British person in Tanzania, and it's done very well. And so what we're working on now, because long-term we're not necessarily able to care for these special needs children indefinitely, but this home is specifically designed for that, and they actually are well equipped with occupational therapists and physical therapists and things like that, which are not resources that we have at all in our area. So we're working on getting those kids transferred to that home. And then prayers for peaceful elections, again, just because of specifically the albino children and how that impacts their safety. I'm not really concerned about other dangers in Geita, at least, during this next election cycle. But in order to get the albino children back home, we want to see that situation calm down. And then part of my job always is fundraising for Neema House to keep the operations running, because it's no small task to care for all these kids. So just that is always a stressor and burden. So, and always looking for partners in that. So if you guys are part of a Rotary Club or a group, a work group or anything that ever wants to know more about Neema House, I'm happy to talk to that group about it. If you tell me, if you share like Facebook posts or whatever, just kind of to get information out there about us, all of that is helpful. So that's kind of the work I'm doing. So that's a quick overview, but I wanted to ask, okay, great, I have 5 minutes. So does anybody have questions about what I'm doing now, about the operations, anything like that? Yes?
Your work's awesome, so thank you for doing it. Thanks for sharing with us. It's just amazing. What is the adoptions? Is that just local there in that part of Africa? Is that adoptions for that would go over to the U.S.?
No, it's just domestic adoptions in Tanzania. So they have to go through Tanzanian social welfare for them to adopt.
And then what is, as far as like outreach, like share the good news and all that, what do you guys, I'm sure you're thoughtful, strategic, and it's probably more meeting against the Christ and meeting needs, but what does that look like as you integrate that into the
So in the past, we had teammates that were working specifically with discipleship. So sometimes we would connect families with them. Those teammates are all gone, but we are a Christian organization. All of our staff are Christians, and we have lots of opportunities to pray with families in the hospitals or at their homes, even through our outreach program, to address a lot of the animism and witchcraft, and to pray with families and cut off the talisman that they put on them. We minister to the kids at Neema House. We do singing and prayer time every single day. We do Sunday school lessons with them every single Sunday. So it's kind of like Brian was talking about. We're the hands and feet of Jesus. We are his shining light through our actions and through our service and through the way that we're working with these families. Yes? There is. You can help. So this is a new little thing for me, but you can use this QR code. You can also write a check to Neema House. And so anything that goes straight to Neema House, in terms of you can do a one-time donation, you can sign up for a recurring donation. I think $13 will help feed a child for a week, $49 for a month. So, but you can pick any amount and put in your own. So, yeah, if you take a picture. Okay, yes. Or you can go to our website, which is Neema House, Neema house.org, and click on donate now. Yes. Yes. So the initial, I most recently did it in Australian dollars for a proposal, which is different, so I have to wrap my head around it. I think what we're needing to get it started up is about $40,000, which, because we have to build a wall around the project, and then we have to get all the cages and stuff. So most of that is one-time startup cost. But then, no, that's in Australian dollars. It's like $20,000 startup. So then we would generate all of that back within the first year is what is proposed based on the plan. So we would be able to make all of that back within the first year and scale it up within a couple of years to bring in about a little over $50,000 a year. So it's actually very exciting because we don't have to obtain any more land, because it would really only take a couple of people to run the project, and it's in the farming wheelhouse, which Tanzanians are all well, especially where we live, they're all farmers, so they understand this well. So it's not a project. We had some ideas before about doing rental properties like Airbnb, stuff like that. But I just never really felt like my Tanzanian staff could maintain that well in my absence, because it's outside of their wheelhouse. They don't deal with that. And it would really need to be marketed to people from other countries in order to be profitable, and they were going to struggle with that. But my assistant director lives 2 houses down. One of my social workers lives on the property right now, so they can help oversee it very easily. And they were like, oh yes, we can easily manage this project, and have a couple of board members that are really invested in it. So so that's what we're looking at. And again, I think long term is going to be great. It is a little overwhelming to me because I don't know a whole lot about chickens, but thankfully my staff does, my board members do, and I will learn, and then maybe I'll get chickens in Arkansas. There are lots of people that have chickens, but it will be a boost, and it will be one of the things that we had discussed was it could also be a way to teach certain skills to our outreach program as well, because we'll be using some different techniques as well. And then even just while some of the bigger farmers like in town are more aware of things like the benefits of chicken manure for farming, the uneducated people in the villages don't necessarily. So it's showing things like that as well. Any other questions? All right, thank you.